All right, we are live. Today we are going to be analyzing a Padsplit, which is also called a co-living rental model, which allows you to rent out by the room. Today we're going to be looking at a property just outside of Atlanta. So let's see if I can kind of squeeze this in so you guys can kind of take a look at this property. Okay, cool. So this property is 5740 Orly Terrace, and I can show you guys as I go through the property. Just scanning, making sure I know what needs to be updated. Maybe new range, stove, bathroom looks perfectly renovated. Not much flooring work needs there. But this looks like this could be a room right here. And this is another room. Two. I'm not sure if that's a bedroom or not. Not sure if this is the bedroom or not. But what I typically look for when I look at Padsplits is I try to look for ample parking. Okay. As I go through this property is on a corner lot. So this makes me feel pretty good about make sure that there's ample parking, especially if you have like a 6, 7, 8 bedroom home or even 9 bedroom home. You want to make sure there's enough parking spots. So I like to count like 1, 2, probably fit. Probably to 3. Another one right there. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, there's so much parking on this one. So if you have watched any of our prior analysis on pad splits or co-living rentals, you will probably know from talking with Blake Lewis, Tyler Floyd, Beth, Quentin, Tyler, also Mel from PMI Atlanta West. You should never, ever underestimate how much parking you need for a pad split because people need a place to park all their properties. So today what we're doing here is we are going to go look at the numbers here, 5740. And if you guys ever want to look at the full screen version, if you're on Instagram, you can go to youtube.com/@Kent_he, youtube.com/@Kent_he, and you guys can see the full version of it. But I'm going to try to keep all the numbers within the screen so you guys can quickly look at how we're analyzing this stuff, okay? Now, as I went through the property, I saw that there's 2 garages right here, and I looked through the property in the photos, and I saw that 1, 2, the living and the dining room can at least be converted to extra bedrooms. Like there's definitely one over there. I'm sure once we get videos of the place, there's probably another room that we can convert. So if this is 5 bedroom right now, this is probably an 8 or 9 bedroom conversion where likely one of the properties actually has its own private bathroom. So if you want to work with an amazing Padsplit rep, you can click on our direct referral link on the YouTube videos and you will get access to Blake's calendar. And Blake was so kind to have provided me with some stats by zip code on what our occupancy might look like in the zip code, some average rent here, which is about 165, but 99 to 340. You can kind of see like how much demand there is. That's amazing because when you are taking and embarking upon a investment, there is risk and you want to understand exactly what you can potentially get in rent. And that can happen from asking your realtor, other Padsplit investors, a Padsplit rep such as Blake, which you can click on my referral link that will bring you directly to Blake, or you could ask the property manager, which I have brought onto the podcast. So I would argue that one of the hardest things to do as an investor is looking for an amazing team. And I have been able to get these folks to come onto the podcast to show you guys what an amazing team might look like. So definitely check them out in terms of who your Padsplit rep might be. We've had Ray Nunez. We've had Blake Lewis on. We've had a realtor and GC like Tyler Floyd. We've had a property manager like Mel. All these folks will be able to kind of guide you down a path so they can help you mitigate the risk and ultimately try to help you think about how do you become a successful Padsplit investor. Okay. Now, from that point onwards, hey, we got Padsplit rep on here. That's awesome. Parts which use a LinkedIn with the wall and calculate how many cars can fit based on the average size of a car. That's a great recommendation, man. Love that. Not sure who's on the account as a Gene, but Thanks for jumping on, guys. So at about $289,900 down here, here's how I kind of differentiate how much these rooms are. Now, let's see if I can zoom in a little bit so you guys can kind of see on the screen on Instagram. So I typically like to look at, okay, where are my rooms with ensuite baths? Where are my rooms with private entrances? Where are the rooms that are standard? And where are the slightly smaller rooms? Now, you definitely should not have a room smaller than a 7x10 or a 10x8, just because that gets really, really tight after a while. But using some very conservative numbers here, we said average about 165 to 170. So I'm using 170 for my average rent here for those rooms. I'm using 180, assuming that if I'm converting a garage or something like that, then that would probably have its own private entrance. And I'm using 250 right now for one room with the ensuite, assuming that there is an ensuite bathroom for this property. Okay. Now, as I go through, let me just check the chat here in case anybody is asking me a question. What's okay? Tony's lives. Awesome. Hey, Ross. Thanks for kind compliment. I'm glad this is helpful. This is hopefully this is valuable for everybody. So as I kind of enter all my weekly renter rates, I am now going to go in there and get my property taxes. Now, property tax is pretty straightforward. I just usually pull it right from within the Redfin estimate. So if you scroll all the way down, it says 258 for property taxes, which is what I have. Let's see, 258 times 12. And then for a homeowner's insurance, I've gotten a quote for 1575 before on another Padsplit that we were in escrow on. And this property, if I remember correctly, I think there was a pool on here. Let me double check. Let me check the satellite. Yeah, there's a pool here. So the insurance should probably cost more if at the minimum. So I'm going to add in another at least $500 onto the insurance just to be conservative. Usually there's extra liability insurance, etc. whenever you have a pool for the property. I have a 2% asset management fee, initial furnishing expenses. Usually these renovations from some of the quotes that I've been getting for these Passman conversions have been between 50 to 70 grand if you're not doing like major flooring work, which for this property does not look like there is a sort of major flooring work, especially since the flooring looks like they're in pretty good condition. The bathrooms have been renovated for the most part. Granted, I can't see two of the bathrooms, so I'm just being a little bit conservative here. But all in all, this is just for me to figure out whether or not it's worth the effort to send somebody out to the house to do a walkthrough and get an itemized bid for line item by line item. So right now I got about 55.5K right now for the renovations. And let's go to the square footage. Boom, closing costs at about 2.5%. I got an extra 2,700 because we saw some extra closing costs that came up during the last property that we were in escrow for, that we have now closed on. And then we're assuming about 5 months of reserves for the mortgage, which includes holding costs while we are getting the property fully up and running, and assuming that we probably have to convert one of the garages, if anything. So let's go through some of the expenses. Now, you never want to be in a situation where you're analyzing a deal and you are not taking into account all your other expenses. A lot of folks sometimes when they analyze a deal, they will simply say, hey, what's my PITI and what's my rent? They forget about all the other expenses that have to come through with it. Now, Tyler was, so we have 8% for property management right now. We've got 2% asset management that I'm looking after the property on behalf of my partners. Padsplit fees about 14.75%, which includes the swipe fees. We have some bookkeeping expenses because I, for my LLC, always make sure that there is a third party that's looking at all the numbers every single month to make sure that all the numbers reconcile and all the ins and outs. We have someone looking at those expenses and asking the right questions on them. Water, sewer, trash. I got this number from our realtor and GC, who was Tyler on our previous episode of affordable housing and real estate investing. Electric, I got that from him as well. Lawn and cleaning, about $180 a month. We got $50 for internet, which could be lower or higher. We got some administrative fees for LLCs. Don't forget about if you are ever forming an LLC. Sometimes there are annual filing fees on here. So this is how we're going about analyzing all of these properties. Now, I had really, really good help from our GC and realtor, Tyler Floyd, who was on our previous podcast. So make sure you reach out to him. Really, really good guy. really good at estimating expenses, and he's just someone that you want on your team along with Blake Lewis. So as we kind of go through all these numbers, we want to go through a different scenario analysis, right? Now, how I do my scenario analysis is I fluctuate the booked weeks per year number, okay? And if you assume that 46 weeks, let's just do this math so you guys can look at it. 46 divided by 52. What does that equals to in terms of percentage? That's about an 88% occupancy. Okay. With an 88% occupancy on this property, we think we will get roughly around 46 weeks, which is in line with how Blake actually allowed us to estimate the occupancy for this property in Atlanta for the specific zip code. And if you guys forgot, let me just pull it up really quick so you guys can see what those numbers look like. This is what I was talking about. Blake was kind enough to provide us 30349, which is 30349. She gave us a true occupancy and attainable occupancy of 99%. So I'm just being conservative and using 88% as one of my scenarios and using some of the average numbers there for our property. Now, granted, if you have a local property manager or a local realtor that understands this better, then that will also be a very advantageous teammate to be or to have as part of your team. Okay. Now, when you plug in 46 weeks, let's go through here so you guys can kind of see. So right now it's 46 weeks, and you see that the cash on cash return is going to be 13.6% cash on cash return, and that yields a 74.5K. Scoop it over this way. Yeah, let's do that. I'm just trying to squeeze into the numbers as you guys see it. 13.6K. And then my midpoint scenario is I'm going to adjust it now to 48, and that brings it to 77.8K at 48 weeks, and that equals a 15.2% cash on cash return. Hi. Sorry, my daughter's just talking to me. And then our high occupancy is going to be 50 weeks. At 50 weeks, this brings me to a 16.9% cash on cash return. And this is $81,000. And this is assuming a 290K property. And this assumes a 7.75% interest rate, which might not even be reasonable anymore, right? So if you assume that interest rates now are getting to 8.5%, and you want to all of a sudden still be able to achieve 17% on your midpoint scenario, which is 48 weeks, now you have to play around with your offer to figure out, like, hey, what am I willing to pay for this property if that is the case? So if this property was $250,000 at 48 weeks occupancy, then that gets me to a 17.5% cash on cash return. And that would be the price that I personally would purchase this property at, assuming all of the other assumptions hold constant from expense perspective. But this allows me for $250,000 at 48 weeks. And this assumes an 8.5% interest rate, which is probably more in line with what the market looks like. So that was our analysis of a pad split in the Atlanta market. If you guys had any questions, please make sure you reach out and DM me on Instagram at investwithkent. If you guys like this stuff going live, please make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channels, youtube.com/@Kent_HE. And that referral link will bring you right towards a screen that will allow you to put in your name, sign up for an account, and then be able to talk to Blake Lewis, who's my Padsplit rep, to figure out whether or not Padsplit is the right model for you. And if you want to learn more about Padsplit, you guys can look at my prior podcast interview with Blake and Tyler. This is specifically about the Atlanta market, so we get really specific about it. And we even got into the nitty-gritty details with Tyler and Blake about all things related to Padsplit, how to estimate rehab expenses, which I know for a fact that not many podcasts in the world really get into those types of details, but I get into them because I know that is super crucial in terms of your analysis, understanding the risk that's involved, and ultimately learning and figuring out how do you vet your own contractors or your own team for your investment journey. So I'm super blessed to have amazing folks like Beth, Blake, Tyler, Quentin, Mel, all Ray, all these folks that have joined our podcast to come on here and share all this wealth of knowledge with all of you. And thank you so much for your time, everybody. And don't forget to DM me if you guys have any questions. Thank you so much. Have an amazing day, everybody.